And welcome to another episode of the Best Phone Plans Podcast. Today's episode, we're going to be focused on the fixed wireless solutions in the market. Verizon announced new home internet plans, early impressions on the T-Mobile home internet, and AT&T offers fixed wireless as well? Question mark? So make sure you stay tuned to find out more. But before we get too deep into it, I got to ask the famous age-old question. Stetson, how are you doing on this fine day?
Doing mighty fine today, Dennis. We've been testing out T-Mobile home internet. We recorded a rocking podcast episode earlier today, and it's just another beautiful day in Colorado. With that said, I think we should dive in to the fixed wireless options for 2022, help people identify what the winners are, who the losers are, and what the options are in general.
Well, I want to just start off right out the gate by saying I think all consumers are the winners when there's options available. But let's start off with the big red devil themselves, good old Verizon.
I'm going to go ahead and pop their plans on here so we can take a look at them. But I think Verizon introduced some new plans. They launched their 5G plans with their C-band announcement, and this is their new option. Your home internet is going ultra, and this is going to be their 5G home internet plan. Looks like we have two options here: 5G Home, 5G Home Plus, both offering truly unlimited data on the Verizon network, 5G access. And it looks like the only differences I'm seeing are in the plan perks and the price lock. So the regular one is 2-year price guarantee. The Pro 5G Home Plus is going to be a 3-year price guarantee, and the perks for the Plus plan are 12 months Disney Plus, 12 months AMC Plus, and you're also getting a Google Nest Hub Max as opposed to a Nest Hub Mini. Otherwise, pretty solid plans, I would say.
Yeah, I got to say, before Verizon's pricing was more expensive than T-Mobile's, traditionally speaking, and I think that these changes were well welcomed. I would actually argue that, if you have this as an option, then clearly you have millimeter wave. I would argue this is probably the best option, period. Like, it smokes T-Mobile because we've seen millimeter wave performance easily get over a gig. Although, to be clear here, Verizon does market it as 300 megabits per second, I believe.
Yep. So let me just pop in here. You can see the advertised speeds that I have written down are download up to 300 megabits per second, upload up to 50 megabits per second, and with the 5G Plus plan, Verizon is saying, for whatever reason, downloads between 300 and 1,000 megabits per second. But of course, both plans do have access to millimeter wave, so I'm not 100% sure where that's coming from. And they also had a second gateway that they're calling the internet gateway as opposed to the 5G gateway, with slightly different speeds as well. But overall, very strong plans. What do you think of the discount? Because you can now get up to 50% off these plans with the new Verizon cell phone plans, which would make 5G home internet, Dennis, $25 a month.
I think at that price point, that is incredible value, and I can't foresee anything beating it as an option, considering that, like we touched on, millimeter wave has lots of capacity. I think Verizon's actually being conservative in this point in case with 300 meg. I think it's easy to assume that you'll at least get a gig.
Yeah.
And considering that...
I just had a thought. I think they might be saying 300 meg because this is actually going to be using ultra capacity, or excuse me, that's what T-Mobile's calling it, but the C-band spectrum, right? When it launches, because that's going to be bundled in under the ultra wideband. So I think they're doing 300 meg. Hopefully that's what we'll be seeing on the C-band.
That is a fair point, but I'm saying in the event that you do have millimeter wave access specifically,
yeah, oh yeah,
I think it's easy to assume that you'll be able to get a gig. And if you consider the fact that your typical fiber cable provider usually charges somewhere in the range of $70 to $80 for gigabit internet, $25 would be a steal.
It would be an absolute steal. Even the 5G Home Plus, that would be $35 a month.
Yeah.
50% off.
On a side note, by the way, when you were talking about how Verizon markets the speeds a little bit different, I'm going to be really curious when the product properly releases to see if there's maybe any type of QCI differences.
Yeah, that is one thing that wasn't clear, is if there was any deprioritization of any kind. And I'll actually pull this up on the plan information. This is where I was pulling it from. The 5G internet gateway has the speeds up to 300 megabits per second. And there's also the Verizon internet gateway. And that's where you're getting the 85 to 300 megabits per second.
Now, I just want to be clear. if we're talking about the 5G home internet, I think it's honestly probably the best fixed wireless choice from Verizon, or just in general, in my opinion. But not everything is rose tinted glasses for Verizon. There is a lesser known product from Verizon, which is their LTE product.
Yeah, let me pull that up now so we can take a look. And this is going to be available for more customers because LTE is in more areas. And it's got pretty much the same pricing here, $50 a month.
Yes, and that is exactly why it is not rose tinted glasses. So Verizon reduced the cost of their 5G because originally it was more expensive, which is great. But they didn't adjust the pricing on the LTE product, and they didn't make any changes. So if we look closely, speeds are capped at 50 megabits per second max on the LTE gateway that Verizon provides, and uploads are capped at 5 megabits per second. Totally usable speeds definitely beats what the FCC deems to be broadband, but I find that rather disappointing because there are plenty of areas that I can think of where Verizon has plenty of LTE capacity, and I know higher speeds are available. In fact, little side tangent, but this is something that I know. When it comes to the millimeter wave gateway, or the 5G gateway, it's geo-locked and you can't activate unless you're connected to a millimeter wave site. But if you change your address, get it activated on a millimeter wave site, and then take it back somewhere where there's only an LTE connection, it'll actually connect and give you the full unthrottled speed.
Wow. That's very interesting. So instead of getting the 25 to 50 megabits per second, you get the full capabilities of whatever the Verizon network offers in your area.
That's correct.
Huh? I'll be darned. And what do you think Verizon is doing for priority for these plans? Do you see them as being deprioritized? Do you think they're...
I'm going to assume they're going to be like QCI9, just like what T-Mobile's doing with their T-Mobile home internet.
Yeah.
The only exception to that rule is with the new 5G Home Plus. I'm just a little bit curious of why they think they can guarantee a higher speed, if that was just a marketing mistake or what. I'm kind of curious.
Well, I mean, they're saying average speeds. My guess is they will be deprioritized because I think if you give unlimited internet customers priority data, I think that's just going to tank the performance of your network. Like, I think you want your mobile customers getting the faster speeds, the better performance, and internet customers are just going to have to deal with the ebb and flow of the capacity on the network.
Well, I'll tell you something interesting that maybe it might be on the horizon. We know that Verizon's been working on implementing a 5G core.
Yeah.
What if they're going to be doing special network splicing for the 5G Home Plus to guarantee the higher speeds for that, and then give a different slice for the normal 5G home internet product?
That'd be really cool. I honestly think...
I mean, it's not going to happen like within these next few months, but that might be like an end of year thing.
Yeah, I don't know how long it'll take to deploy. I would see it more as like they make a dedicated home internet chunk, a slice, just for home internet customers to make sure they're getting performance. And then the rest of the available spectrum is going to cell users.
I'm actually going to disagree. I could totally see them subdividing that home internet chunk just like they do for their traditional home internet. I mean, think about Fios, for example, right? They got their different speed tiers that are guaranteed.
Yep.
200, 400, and gig, right? Why couldn't they do the same thing with their wireless product? It wouldn't be too difficult.
Well, I guess, like, how can you guarantee speeds? You have to allocate a certain amount channel width to a number of subscribers, and then the limit becomes how many people can a cell site serve. Because if, each customer needs to get 10 megahertz dedicated to themselves in their slice, then suddenly you can only serve so many customers on a cell site. I think it'd be more likely to group them all together and to have them deal with their own congestion.
Well, you can guarantee a range of speeds, and I will also just say like that same problem that you were talking about is actually an issue even with home internet. Like when a cable operator expands out into an area, right? We talked about this, bandwidth is shared at the node. So when the engineer that's designing that infrastructure for that neighborhood, they have to think like, okay, 10 gigs shared between this many houses, assuming that they get these types of speed in a residential setting, yada, yada. In the same way you would do things a little bit differently in a commercial setting. I think Verizon, or I'd like to hope that Verizon would be able to be smart enough to do it in such a way that makes sense.
Yeah. Sure. We'll have to wait and see. Either way, those are the plans. Very strong options from Verizon, and they compare really well. All right, Dennis. I think let's actually quickly touch on AT&T and just knock them out because they are kind of already knocked out.
Yeah, they're not exciting at all.
So let me add them to the stream here so you guys can take a look at what we're looking at. This is new to me. I didn't know this existed, so thank you, Dennis, for bringing this to my attention.
You should have honestly knew about that because we talked about it before.
I know. You're right. I should have. AT&T fixed wireless internet. Two options here. Fixed wireless internet and fixed wireless internet plus DirecTV. And if we take a look at the features and benefits, first of all, $60 a month. So it's $10 more per month than Verizon and T-Mobile. T-Mobile's $50. Advertising speeds of 25 megabits per second and upload speeds of 1 megabit per second. You're getting 350 gigabytes of data. This is the only fixed wireless product that we're covering today that has a data cap, and you're paying $10 per 50 gigabytes of overage charges, I believe.
Up to $200.
Up to $200 in overages. So, yikes. But you are getting a Wi-Fi gateway router, and that's good, right? Like AT&T's hooking you up with the Class C, better than the T-Mobile Nokia gateway, right? Dennis, you look like you're about to cry. Are you okay over there?
I hope you're joking, because this thing that they provide you makes the Nokia gateway look like it's the finest piece of engineering in the world.
Let's take a look. It's the
MF279.
Oof. Yeah. So Dennis, what did you learn about this gateway?
Well, what I learned was two things. One is that the LTE modem inside of it is I can't remember the category number, but it caps out at 150 megabits per second as a theoretical max. But two, which is even more important and terrible, is it's using 802.11a Wi-Fi standard, which basically means Wi-Fi 1, or in a more specific term here, the theoretical maximum Wi-Fi transfer rate is only 54 megabits per second. But in real world use, this is like well known, you realistically are only going to be able to expect about 25 megabits per second, and it only has the 2.4 gigahertz channel. No 5 gigahertz, no Wi-Fi AC. This is not a good Wi-Fi router.
Yikes. And at the price point, it's not really competitive, I think, is the bottom line here. Like, would you sign up for this? Would you recommend anyone sign up for this?
Honestly, these speeds are in line with DSL upload. So honestly, no. If you have a DSL provider that can offer this, I would just choose the DSL offer, because at least with most DSL providers, if they do have a data cap, they tend to be a little bit more generous than 350.
Yeah.
So
I would say, I haven't done too much research into this. I would say the only potential saving grace for this would be if you could take the SIM card out of the included device and put it in your own device, like a Netgear Nighthawk.
I still don't think that would be a saving grace, to be honest with you, Stetson, because it was to my understanding that the speeds were capped. I think they made changes on that, which is great. But even if you could switch it out, I don't think that would be a saving grace. And also, the only true saving grace is if the only options are satellite and if you're a DirecTV customer. Because as we did find out, you do get a pretty healthy discount if you bundle with DirecTV.
Yeah, so the DirecTV bundle is including 160 of your favorite channels. And Dennis, I think you said the cost of the DirecTV plan with 160 channels is $140. And you're actually getting the fixed wireless internet plus DirecTV for $135 a month.
So you're saving $65 a month, at least for the first year when that promo is going on.
It looks like 12 months plus taxes with 24-month TV agreement.
Which is true DirecTV fashion, after all. They do like to jack your rates up right after the first year.
Yeah,
but that's a whole nother topic about how cables, Anywho, LDR, AT&T still better than satellite, unless we're talking about Starlink.
Yep. Still
better than satellite, like Houston and Viasat. But honestly, it's AT&T. What are you doing? Okay, guys, update your plans. Verizon can do it. T-Mobile can do it. I have a hard time believing you can't do it, AT&T. I trust you. Now, let's move on to the product that I have gotten a chance to actually use, courtesy of Stetson, and that would be the T-Mobile Home Internet product.
Oh, yeah. So let me pull this up so everyone can take a look. This is what we've been using. We're using it right now. I think because it's a recording, I'm not... Actually, it is. Yeah, we're streaming to the cloud, and then we're going to download it. So we're using it right now. It's T-Mobile Home Internet, and Dennis has done some excellent sleuthing on this, bringing you guys information that I don't think we've seen before from any other channel, at least to my knowledge. So what are you getting with T-Mobile Home Internet? I'll cover the basics. $50 a month for unlimited internet. They're pretty much advertising all the same stuff, no price hikes. Actually, they're doing, I think, price for life. So they're basically outgoing.
I'm going to use quotation marks here. Price for life, because everything always says they can change it.
Yeah.
So
I guess it's true. They're advertising $50, and you get the Nokia 5G gateway. I guess the comparison I made, I feel like, is a pretty good summary. Download speeds between 35 and 115 megabits per second. We've actually gotten over that, like 240.
We've gotten as high as like 550.
550. So really good. Depends, of course, on your location. It is, for a fact, deprioritized. And, of course, you're getting the Nokia 5G gateway with Wi-Fi 6 as opposed to what Verizon is offering with their gateways. But, Dennis, I think this brings us to your review and experience of T-Mobile Home Internet and what you've learned about it. So please enlighten us with your internet prowess, why it might be a good option or not a good option.
Well, I'm going to start off with the good, and then we'll get into the bad and the ugly.
Got it.
First, if there's an area that you live in that has good, reliable T-Mobile coverage like Stetson does, T-Mobile Home Internet is a better option than some alternatives out there like DSL or satellite. And it can definitely help you out with getting certain more simpler things done or things that are more forgiving when it comes to latency, like say watching a YouTube video or something like checking your email or something like that, or just downloading a file.
I think I've been web browsing using Google Docs, kind
Yeah.
of what I do for YouTube work so far today, and it's been great.
Yeah, so basic stuff. Now for the really ugly part. I was doing...
We need some dramatic music, like dun dun dun. All right, Dennis, continue.
So I've been doing some serious testing. Part of it was stress testing just to see some things. And there was 3 interesting discoveries that I found. First is that T-Mobile Home Internet suffers from significant packet loss.
What does that mean? What is significant packet loss? And then how does that impact your performance?
Sure. So when you're using the internet, there are packets of information. You could picture it like letters going into your postal box, okay? Packet loss would be like if I stole a bunch of your letters and they never got delivered, so you never got the information as far as incoming messages. And in a networking setting, you want that to be as close to 0 as possible, and anything above 0.1% starts becoming a problem. T-Mobile was, depending on the conditions that I end up finding that could be repeatable, was regularly seeing between 5 to 10% packet loss.
Woof.
Which doesn't sound like a lot as a percentage, but that is enough to literally just straight up disconnect you from, say, an online video game, or maybe you're having an important work meeting. You just straight up disconnect from the call failed. So significant packet loss was an issue, and that is literally unacceptable for an internet replacement.
So this is still the first point. I mean, do you want to tell what circumstances you noticed this? Because I think this is almost more surprising to me.
Sure. So one of the things I wanted to do is I wanted to see... So I woke up really early today. It was literally, to be clear here, it was middle of the night, basically. So there's no one on this cell site, okay? One of the things I wanted to do was test to see what D-Prior would look like when there was other devices going. So I got my trusty Magenta Max line, and I had a second line upstairs. And what I did was I went on fast.com. I set up the settings so that the speed test would run for 3 minutes. And while the speed test was going on, I ran speed tests on both my phones. Okay. And what I found due to the deprioritization was 2 things. One is that the test on fast.com would actually freeze, sometimes to the point where it would just cancel out.
Oh, wow.
And 2, that was the reoccurring repeat event that would help me generate the spikes in ping and the packet loss. Gotcha. It only took 2 devices that I was aware of and conscientious for me to detrimentally affect the performance of the T-Mobile internet. But even worse is this one T-Mobile home internet user was literally detrimentally impacting my cell phone experience. I was getting 1/3 of the speed on my Magenta Max line.
Wow.
When the test was going on.
Yeah, so what were you getting? What were you seeing for your speeds? Do you remember? Or?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, when it was the middle of the night on my phone, I was seeing as high as 700.
Yeah.
For comparison, if I had if I had the T-Mobile home internet running as a speed test, and I ran a speed test on here, if it kept going like it should, then this would get 200, and this might get 250. Gotcha. So a pretty significant drop off.
It's dropping off a lot, kind of splitting the spectrum between the 2 plans.
So, and that's just one T-Mobile home internet customer.
That was the first point too. So one internet customer, and you're seeing pretty hard dips in performance for both Magenta Max, which is unlimited premium data supposedly, and T-Mobile Home Internet, which is bottom of the barrel deprioritized. And it sounds like T-Mobile Home Internet got the brunt force here with the packet loss that you were experiencing.
Oh yeah, T-Mobile Home Internet definitely came out worse off in the situation, specifically with the extra high latency that came from it and the packet loss. That's definitely the worst end of the spectrum. But the more scary thing from that point is that it only took one person and a couple devices to have that happen. But anyway, so look, packet loss was number one.
That was number one. That was great. I think that was really good.
That was the biggest problem, because honestly, other things you can deal with. Number 2, though, is the latency. And I'm not talking about the fact that it just has higher pings, but specifically the variability in jitter, which is something I already knew coming in. It's just inherently a problem. But the TLDR is like this. You want your latency to be low. Most things that you do on the web don't require a lot of data, but your ping times are going to be how quickly or how responsive things feel. Like when you click on like a link on a web page, right? T-Mobile tends to average, I would say, somewhere around 60 milliseconds ping time. That seem fair?
Sure.
But the jitter also tends to be about 60. And what jitter is it's the fluctuation of your latency. You want your jitter to be no more than like 5, really. Like that's kind of where you want it to be. Because what ends up happening is when you have lots of variability in latency, if you're doing something that has like real time, like say gaming, it creates that rubber banding effect that I'm sure many of my fellow gamers will know. And makes it unplayable. Whereas if you had a consistently high latency that was stable, you can kind of compensate with things like lag compensation, for example, or other methods to help smooth out that connection. And I don't know, it's hard for me to tell if that was a Nokia gateway issue that was specifically causing that or if that was specifically coming from the deep prio. But yeah, latency was a big problem with the T-Mobile home internet. And then my last thing with the product is just simply the Nokia gateway. I'm still staying on this. It's trash.
It looks like a trash can.
No, it's trash. Like every time Stetson unplugged it to move it, it lost all of its settings.
Yeah, well, I've only done it once. I don't know what settings people are setting though that are resetting.
You had to reset the password and stuff, remember?
That's when I first set it up. When I moved it, it was fine.
When you moved it, it was fine?
Yeah, when I moved it was fine.
Well, you moved it from the window to the
hallway.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was fine. I didn't have to reset anything.
You didn't have to set up the password again? I thought you did
No.
the Wi-Fi name and the password again.
Nope, that was still in there.
That was still in there.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. I thought I was watching you do that on the T-Mobile.
I've heard Austin and other people say like it forgets your preferences for some things, so I'm not sure.
I mean, I know it's a common issue. I thought you were repeating it up there, but maybe I misunderstood.
Yeah.
But hey, look, even if we nix that out for a moment, it's still lacking in settings and features. Like your Asus router that I have for you, for example, has great QoS. You have the packet.
Could we plug the T-Mobile home internet gateway into the Asus router and use that?
You could, but the problem is that the T-Mobile home internet gateway, unlike say your Comcast gateway, can't be put into bridge mode where it's just a modem. So what will end up happening is you'll have
two networks. They interfere with each other.
But yes, and yes. But more specifically, what's going to end up happening is you're going to cause a double NAT type issue.
Right. Obviously, double NAT.
But
what's a double NAT?
Basically, okay. So when you have an ISP, I'm sorry if we're getting a little sidetracked, but he asked a good question. So when you have an ISP, okay, your ISP provides you with a public IP address.
Yes.
Okay.
Ours right here for. And I'm kidding.
So that public IP address is then used by your router, who makes a local area network set of IP addresses. And I used the analogy before with you where I said basically like the public address that your ISP gives you is like your house address, whereas the IP addresses that your router starts dishing out to your individual devices, like almost like having an apartment in the apartment complex. Like it's, 555B, 555C, right? Because IPv4 addresses are limited, and we talked about this, and that's why IPv6 is important. So what ends up happening with a double NAT, though, is when you have two routers, both are trying to assign apartment B, apartment C to your devices, and it causes issues sometimes. Or an even simpler way of putting it, it's like this. It'd be like if you had two bosses in the kitchen telling you what to do. One's telling you to cook the eggs. The other one's telling you, no, check on the toast. Like, you can't do both at the same time. It gets a little confusing, right? So, TLDR, I don't know if I did a great job explaining that really simply, but TLDR, gateway limiting in features kind of sucks, to be perfectly frank. Can't wait until the rumored one that we checked out comes out.
Oh yeah, we had a great podcast. That's probably one of our most viewed episodes on the new channel. Actually, is the new rumored gateway for T-Mobile home internet. I think that could potentially really change the product that they're offering. Like,
I think that'll be a substantial improvement in a lot of ways, because then it will at least give users some more control over the experience. A lot of the things I don't think they're going to be able to correct. Like, I don't think they're going to be enable port forwarding, because that's on the network side, just like your phone.
Yeah.
But they need to figure out TLDR. T-Mobile needs to make their infrastructure more smart to meet the home internet use case, because right now the home internet product still feels like it's in beta, and it still feels like a basically almost a worse version of my hotspot.
Sure.
That's the TLDR. It definitely gets good speeds. It definitely can work. There are times where it has the DNS timeouts, which I showed you because of the packet loss, which is rough. But for somewhat normal stuff, it's fine. I definitely would not trust if you're a work from home person. Just flat out no. And I would not trust it if you're trying to game. For those, I don't see any circumstance why you wouldn't pick cable, to the point where I'd rather have only 5 meg upload and like 100 meg down over the T-Mobile home internet product that meant consistency and reliability.
Wow. I guess I will share my initial impressions right now as we're trying to put it through its paces. I felt like it handled a stream I did with Dennis earlier. We did a full dedicated stream on it. I thought it handled that reasonably well. I think my iMac actually overheated, and that was a bigger problem there. And I feel like as my normal use case, as I mentioned before, doing my YouTube, my Google Docs, being on Twitter way more than I should have, I think it's doing great for my use, and I'll definitely kind of keep you updated with maybe some more positive news. Like I think honestly right now, for average consumers, I doubt you would notice a difference. Dennis, of course, is a pretty hard disagree on some of those things, but I'm just trying to add another perspective. Like, hey, maybe it's actually not that bad. Like maybe it is worth trying for a month or two, especially they're doing a free month now.
I think it's worth trying. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Also, there was a third point that I forgot because we got sidetracked.
This would be a fourth point then.
Well, yeah, I kind of forgot it. The loaded latency.
Oh, yeah. You were saying there was issues with that.
Yeah, so
Maybe that'd be a good dedicated video. We can just recreate what you were testing and we can see what happens.
yeah, but TLDR, basically, when the thing was under load because it doesn't have good QoS or the network doesn't have good QoS, loaded latency was spiking into the 600s and sometimes over 1,000, which also causes timeouts.
Gotcha.
We have a plan. We were talking about a plan to try to actually see if that would happen under, like, instead of us running speed tests, like doing rolled stuff. That was something we're kind of talking behind the scenes. So we'll have to figure it out. I did just run a speed test just for funsies, using Ookla in a good server to try to give it the best case. We got 25 ping, 230 down, 17 up, which is great speeds.
Those are great.
Fortunately, when you do Ookla through the browser, it doesn't show the packet.
Yeah, I was trying to look for that earlier, and I noticed that. But I think, Dennis, the question I think at the end of the day is like, what are the best fixed wireless products? What should people be getting for? Let me just pull up our comparison here, and let's just take a kind of round out look at the offerings and what you think people should get and what I think people should get. So
sure, I feel like we're gonna agree. Probably.
Yeah. I guess right now, based on the offerings, I think Verizon is, I would almost say they're surprisingly all of a sudden the most competitive. I think the 50% off discount they're including with their new plans is killer.
I mean, even without the discount,
it's really good. And this is going to be their 5G offering. I would say the variable right now is how good is C-band? Where is the coverage? Are you getting it? If you're in a millimeter wave site, I would almost say no brainer. Like $25 a month for 300 megabits per second down, 50 up. Like that's incredible.
yeah. I mean, I'm just gonna keep it short and sweet. My hierarchy goes, and it's the same as when we had talked about this last time. But it's Verizon, no brainer, period. Then T-Mobile, then AT&T, because AT&T is not an option.
Yep. I would agree with that. I would say one caveat, I would do Verizon 5G if you're in that. Then I would do T-Mobile 5G if you're in a good N41 site. Then I would do Verizon LTE. I think the cap speeds on LTE make it a little bit worse for me. And I just feel like LTE could be more prone to congestion than 5G would be, just because 5G with the ultra capacity and ultra wideband is going to have more available capacity.
Yeah, sorry if I wasn't clear. Verizon 5G, T-Mobile, Verizon LTE,
Gotcha.
then AT&T.
Yeah. So I think we're in agreement. That's what we've got for the current fixed wireless options. So if you're in the market, consider checking those options out in your area. What could work well for you? I think networks vary so much based on location. I mean, here in Longmont, T-Mobile is on another level. In Pittsburgh, AT&T is the god king for networks. So consider signing up and testing it out.
Well, I'm going to say something in case it's not absolutely clear, and this is pretty consistent. I don't think you can argue with me otherwise. But if you have fiber, please, for the love of God, don't waste your time. Get the fiber option. Fiber is king. Even bad fiber is still better than some other options out there. Coming from the man that has the Fios problems and coming from the man that's gotten to enjoy the beauties of Nextlight, which is fantastic. And also, just bearing this in mind too, because it's worth saying, with the exception of Verizon with the 50% discount, because that's honestly the only one that's actually cheaper. Generally speaking, if you have like a Comcast, you're probably going to be better off just going with one of their promos, because like you can get 200 by 5 for $30. And I feel like honestly, that's probably going to serve you honestly better overall than paying
that'd be
50
cheaper.
for T-Mobile home internet.
So I think bottom line here, look at your options, figure out what's going to be the best for you. I think I'm excited to see the fixed wireless options grow and expand. I think it's more competitive than ever before.
Do you know what I'd be excited to see?
AT&T actually have an option.
Not just that. I want to see T-Mobile. I want to see T-Mobile actually respond to what Verizon is doing and offer a home internet bundle discount.
Oh, yes, Dennis.
Because here's the thing. Remember when I said price affects how harshly I judge someone? When T-Mobile tried to charge Verizon prices, it made me critique them harsher. Now that I'm about to get a discount, I treat them more almost like an MVNO, right? Yeah. Well, in the same way, when T-Mobile tries to charge cable prices, because cable has prices like this, I'm going to compare them against cable and fiber. If T-Mobile can sell their T-Mobile home internet product for $25, which is something that you generally can't get unless you're like on like the Emergency Broadband Fund or something, well, we're talking about a whole different ballgame. I mean, for $25, I mean,
I would actually almost consider switching.
I mean,
I would test it more thoroughly, but we'd be saving like 40. Actually, it'd be like $35 a month, 350, almost $400 a year.
I mean, look, when it's $25, you kind of expect there to be problems in the same way you don't go into Visible expecting a premium experience.
Yeah.
So like for $25, I agree with Stetson. Now you're talking about actual cost savings, real cost savings, prices that wouldn't realistically happen on a fiber option typically. Now we're talking, and that's actually going to provide proper competition for the pricing. Because right now, T-Mobile is still charging more, ironically enough, than your typical cable offer, assuming new customer promos. I'll add that caveat.
Yeah. So either way, I think that's going to be it for our fixed wireless. Hopefully you enjoyed this kind of special bonus episode focused on the fixed wireless offerings for 2022. And hopefully this information helped you decide what would be a good option for your needs. Anything else you want to mention to kind of round out this show here, Dennis?
Yeah, for anybody that didn't realize, this is coming live from the Best Phone Plans HQ, aka Stetson's living room. If you enjoyed this different perspective and want to know how this video was made, make sure you become a member of the Patreon, where there will be some behind the scenes look on how we created this video. Also, if you didn't do so already, make sure you're smashing that like button, as this episode this episode was sponsored by the like button. And lastly, if you could be so kind as to subscribe to the channel. We are on a mission to get over 1,000 subscribers, and when we do, I think me and Stetson can probably plan out something a little extra special for y'all. Absolutely. In the meantime, I'm Dennis.
And I'm Stetson.
And we'll see y'all in the next episode.
Absolutely. Peace, guys.